everybody. Welcome back to the Wacky Wonderful Show. It's been a while.
Yeah,
it's been a while.
You wanted to say it. You wanted to say the Wacky Wonderful Wiseworksproduction.
Yeah, of course, every time.
Every time.
Because it's the opener to most of the content we create.
Mm-hmm.
But we're back. We're here, and we're talking about, it's a new year.
Mm-hmm.
Creating new content. And what are we covering today, Wyatt?
We're going to be looking at some Arcane content.
Now,
Arcane,
for people who don't know what that is.
Yeah, you go ahead.
No,
right.
You say it. I was going to say, I was teeing you off to say.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You were doing it
automatically.
Let's
start over. You
and
do.
I interrupted.
You go ahead.
We're looking at Arcane.
I thought. Okay.
Yeah. We're
looking at Arcane. It's a series on Netflix original, made by League of Legends, based off League of Legends characters.
Yeah.
I've never played League of Legends.
Nor have I.
You've never played it. But the show was very intriguing.
Oh yes, it was. The show was incredible.
You know, I saw it. I saw the trailers for it.
Mm-hmm.
I never watched one of the trailers all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had, I might have actually watched the show.
Yeah.
But my brother called me and he's like, hey, you got to watch the show. And when he calls and says something like that, that's when I know it's serious because, you know, he's going on about story and character development and the way the show looks and everything. And I was like, okay.
So you watched it, and what did you first think?
So the show's a lot to process, but it's easily probably one of the best things that's come out in recent memory, as far as shows go.
Yeah.
The characters, action, everything.
Let's finish the story, though.
Yeah.
Because once you watched it, you're like, hey, Joe, I have something you ought to watch. And I'm like, man, I don't watch half the things you recommend.
I know.
And I was, because, you know, you're recommending Avatar, Airbender, which is fine. People love it. I tried multiple times. And I know the reason why.
He hasn't gotten past the first season, y'all.
Look,
I'm going to sit down with him one of these days. We're going to watch it.
That's just the tip of the iceberg of the things that you recommend that I don't vibe with. You know, I wasn't vibing with my cousin Vinny. We were watching it.
You know, and I don't understand why.
It wasn't vibing.
Okay.
I'm just saying, some things you recommend I don't vibe with. But I sometimes try them. Well, I tried this, and I was like, all right, I'm going to watch the first episode, and I'm going to watch it, and I'll tell him I like it.
Well, I recommended it a couple times.
Yeah.
I kept saying, you need to watch Arcane, and then we had one conversation where you said you were looking for something, and I don't remember specifics, and I said, dude, Arcane is exactly what you are describing. Just sit down and watch the first 3 episodes.
Well, you kind of gave me an idea of what was going on. So when I watched it, I honestly was blown away.
Yeah.
I really was. And so if you haven't watched Arcane, we're going to be getting into why it's getting into character development with one of the, I guess, probably the main character.
One of the 2 main characters.
The most memorable main character. And he's going to be breaking down, the character's name is Jinx, a little bit, answering the question, why did Jinx go insane?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to take a look at one of the pivotal scenes for the entire first season in episode 3, and I'm going to be analyzing it from the filmmaker's perspective.
Yeah.
And so if you haven't watched it, this is an invitation to enjoy something on Netflix that's beautiful. If you like Imagine Dragons, they're like the staple for music there. They sing the lead song, and then they have an awesome... Okay, how about this? Get a vibe for the show by watching the music video.
Watch the music video. That'll sort of... I mean, it's not 100% kind of the way the show feels, but it has a lot of...
It tells a little story itself.
It has a lot of the animation elements and the emotional elements.
Yeah. What was that song called they did?
Enemy.
Look up Enemy by Imagine Dragons on YouTube, and it's animated style from the show that they put themselves into the world. And so it's really good. We're going to get into it, and we'll be back at the end to discuss. Yeah. All right. So let's get into it. I'm going first. I'm going to talk about the filmmaking, the lighting, analyzing a great scene. Hey everybody, so glad that you're here to join me as I analyze an incredible scene from the show Arcane on Netflix that came out last year. Is that correct? Last year? It's beautiful. Now, I was roped into watching it, and I was very thankful I was. It brought a lot of surprise to me as far as like what's going on in the animation world. Obviously, I know it's filled with wonderful artists, but the true cinematic nature of these artists is just mind-blowing. And so I'm going to take a look at one of my personal favorite scenes. It's from episode 3. It's when Vander dies. Spoiler, but you know, I'm sure you're watching this because you've already seen the show. It's after Vander dies and Vi and Powder has this confrontation. We're going to be looking at things like lighting. We're going to be looking at things like color difference, maybe some shadow side with that part of lighting just to help understand how they're structuring the scene and the confrontation between these characters. And then also we're going to be looking to maybe bring up a little bit about the 180-degree rule for composition's sake and, you know, choice of shots. Let's go ahead and watch the first few seconds. Let's look at this first shot before I hit play. This is great because it gives a sense of size and place for these characters. And obviously, Vander, if you watch the episode, you know he turned himself into a monster to save these girls that he's been raising, essentially. And so he has died. She's crying over his body. But this is a nice establishing shot and seeing kind of which direction the characters are facing. Little pull out wide, and then it does a very slight push in, I think. She gets up. This is nice because when it comes to lighting, when it comes to color choice, one of the best things you can do in the foreground and background of your characters is exposure and color difference. And so because the motivated light, the kind of the key light for this whole scene is coming from that fire, from the explosion, on her you have this nice orange light that you see there. And then in the background you have this nice cool light that's more of this bluish off green color. You've noticed even right here, on both sides, really, you have kind of this in-between stage. So it's obviously because it's being illuminated from the fire, but it's just set up very nicely. Also, see how she's framed. Let's see if I play a few seconds, if she sort of leans up forward. You see how there's leading lines in the composition. Her, you know, being sad, her face, her herself is the motivation. So you have leading line here. You kind of have these jagged leading lines kind of shooting off towards her, and then you have a nice frame that's kind of putting her in kind of the center, but the choice of design for the location is really good as well. So we have color difference, we have leading lines, composition. Let's go ahead and take let's go a few more seconds in. Powder shows up in the background, and she turns around and sees Powder. And notice where their eye lines are looking. So you have Powder, her eye line is looking to this side of the camera. So this is going to help you understand the 180-degree rule a little bit. And she also has a nice exposure difference between her face, all of her exposure, and this background. There's stops of lighting in there that's nice, and it brings attention to her as a character.
Finally worked.
So her eyes are looking one direction off screen, and then look at her eyes. The direction of her eyes is going this way. So this kind of helps you establish a little bit about where the line is. So obviously the line is connecting from her nose to Powder's nose, Vi's nose to Powder's nose, and that's the establishing. So when they chose a side, they're staying on that side, and you can tell which side they're on based on where their eye line is at either side of the camera. This is really nice because there's still a color difference, just the opposite. Because she turned away from the fire, you have all of this hot fire going on that's brighter than her, and she's sort of in the shadows, but she's still exposed well for this scene. Let's keep going. And the emotions building. You kind of see the animation is just crazy. The emotion that they can get out of these animated characters is so awesome.
Why did you?
It's kind of cool how they chose when she first walked up to Vi to have a close-up and Powder to not kind of have like a medium close-up. And it's kind of because the emotion, the driving emotion of this scene, kind of the weight of Vi about to help Powder realize what she's done, it's heavy. And so the emotion is focused on Vi, and it's actually, in this shot, it's switching to Powder as she kind of realizes what happened.
Do this.
See, we're getting close up on Powder, and she's kind of...
saving you.
Oh, and she realizes she also killed her friend. And that's really nice, too, that there was a rack focus. I love how they show don't tell here. If you notice, Vi in this scene, she doesn't say anything really expository. She doesn't have to explain anything. It really shows what's going on. She can see Vander is dead behind Vi, and she sees the blood on the goggles that we saw a character wearing earlier. And so they really they show don't tell, which means they don't have to explain. If you have to explain everything in a movie, like you would a book, well then that's bad storytelling for the cinema.
I only wanted to help.
The emotions rising.
I only wanted to help. I told you to stay away.
And now they're both heated. Both of their emotions are high, and she kind of stepped in and became a little bit more of a closer shot on Powder as she's beginning to panic. But we're still on this close-up of Vi as she's noticed. Oh, man.
No. What?
And this is good still for the 180-degree rule. They're staying consistent, even when they change shots to like a wider side shot or whatever. Powder's eye line, even in this shot, it's still looking to the same direction of the frame that she has been looking.
You leave me because you're a Jinx.
And this is kind of literally nose-to-nose face-off. This is really good
Do you hear me?
visual storytelling. And this is an amazing shot where you get that extreme close-up, a choker shot, just to see the emotion that's coming from Powder right now with all of the, the dirt and the blood from getting punched and everything. Even with this, notice the illumination on her skin is still brighter than her background, even though that's just the ground right behind her. It's basic things like this that really help make things look cinematic, as opposed to just like, everything being the same exposure. Creates depth. Oh, let me back up just a hair. I love this shot because it's kind of like what some people call a back key, almost. The main source of light, which is the fire, is actually hitting Vi right here on her shoulder and the side of her face. And it's really nice because you can see it clearly. It's the same color temperature as the fire, but then as you get to the other side of her face, on the shadow side, there's a nice color difference where you have cooler colors on this side, which is contrasting across the frame. It's an authority shot. Oh man, and you still have that nice color difference from one side of the frame to the other side. So you got shadow side here, and you got that back key on on our left side.
Violet, please.
Man. Both of them have extreme close-ups because they're both dealing with a lot of emotions right now. If they were giving wider shots of any kind, you wouldn't be as engaged in their emotional turmoil at this moment. And we're back to that wide shot, as you can literally see the line. Vi crossed the line. You showed her cross the line, so it kind of switches. They're still on the same side of the 180-degree rule, but now their perspectives has shifted. But you can literally see the line from Vander to Powder all the way down to Vi down here in the corner.
Vi, come back, please.
And I love that shot. That's so beautiful. And this is cool too, because you have this color difference that's happening on this side of the frame mixed with everything else that's on this side. This light's not only the main source of light for the scene, this fire, but it actually helps us understand where each character is in the scene and where this location is, how this location is laid out. You know, if you didn't have that, then with all of these shot changes, with them, you know, moving from one side to the other, with her walking into a new location that the scene hasn't been in yet, then it kind of can become confusing. But because there's this color difference of this light blue or this dark blue and this blazing fire, you know and have a sense of where everyone is in the scene. And this is beautiful too. This is just a very nice, you know, location shot or location animated shot of the building that blew up. It's very beautiful. Wow. It's a really powerful scene. It really is. The thing that grabbed me the most is first the emotion, first the visual storytelling of the scene without having to say much, and all these close-ups and these intense moments of emotion just grab you. On top of that, you have this beautiful design for this color difference, exposure difference. They chose, you know, this orangish, purplish look for the flames mixed with this dark blue green tones that you see in the background, the city that's behind this like main source of light. It's just really beautiful storytelling. It's really beautifully composed. The shot choices, the editing together was crafted so well. And I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did when you watched Arcane, and I hope that this was educational or fun to consume, to learn a little bit about the filmmaking eye side of things from analyzing this death scene of Vander from Arcane. If you enjoyed this video, we do all kinds of work, and by we, meaning my brother and my friend Wyatt, we do all kinds of commentary on films, on stories, things that we love, and if you'd be open to it, we come out with content like this a week early and sometimes exclusively content on our Patreon. And so if you're interested in supporting us on Patreon, check out the Patreon link in the description and give us a look-see. We'd really appreciate it if that's something you're into. If not, well, would you at least subscribe and like and tell us what you thought in the comments and give me, tell me what your favorite scene from Arcane was. Really appreciate you taking the time to watch. Love you, and I'll see you next time.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for clicking on the video. We're here to just sort of jump into a little bit of Arcane show on Netflix. We're going to talk a little bit about the characters and the character development of Powder/Jinx throughout the show. More importantly, we're going to be talking about why she goes from being basically a normal kid to the crazy, insane, hallucinating kind of person that we see later in the show. We're going to talk a little bit about how the character progresses and why the change is so harsh from what she was to what she becomes. She's a very interesting character, and I'm not like a psychologist or anything. I'm just going to be looking at this through the lens of what we see in the show, what the creators are trying to show us. Jumping right in there. First, we really get in the beginning of the show who Powder's sort of emotional touchstones are. She has people in her life that she latches onto and that she knows can be there for her and protect her. Mainly as her older sister Violet and Vander, the man who saved them or adopted them, kind of. And these two people are very important because they're her protectors. They're the people who are always there for her And when you're small and when you're a kid and you're unsure, you don't know what's going on, you don't know what you're doing or what you're going to do next. Those people who do know, or at least pretend to know, they really help the way that you feel. And so she latches on to that idea of feeling safe with them. The previous experiences in her life have shown us that this isn't a safe world. There's a lot of dangers. There's a lot of things going on between the rich part of the city, the poor part of the city. They've had rebellions, where the poor people in the city got fed up with how they were being treated, and so they rebelled against the rich part of the city, and there was a whole battle. A lot of people died. The two girls, the main characters, were sort of in the middle of that, and their parents died because of that. And that's one of those situations where as a child you don't know what's going on. You need to have those people in your life who can guide you and protect you. As the story continues and as our characters grow older, we see that Powder and her sister Vi have become Vander's kids, and they do gang stuff. They do hood rat stuff. They like to go out and steal and kind of be a gang and stuff like that. And they have their friends Clagger and Milo, and they're a little family. I don't think the other two are related to them or related to each other, but they're their brothers, and there's a lot of competition and competitive stuff that goes on. And while they're out there on the streets, getting down and dirty and stealing stuff, you got to have skills. And Violet's skill is her athleticism and her ability to punch stuff. And the other two have tech skills or lock-picking skills. People like people with a lot of skills. Jinx, or Powder, doesn't have a lot of skills. She is slowly kind of developing a love for art and a love for invention. But she's not there yet. Her stuff doesn't work yet. And so she makes a lot of mistakes, and she can't really keep up with the others. They get into street brawls, and she runs away. And then when one of her gadgets doesn't work to help protect her, she loses all of their loot. So that kind of leans into the way that the group sees her and the way that they treat her. Because they're kids, it's not 100% serious, but they don't really trust her to actually help out. They tease her a lot. This is, the time when she gets the nickname Jinx. Like, she's unlucky. Every time they go out with her, something goes wrong. But it's because she's a kid. And the other two boys, they get rebuked by Violet for calling her a Jinx, and because Violet understands that she's a kid. But these things, as a child, they ruminate in your skull, and they just, they jiggle around in there, and you don't know how to feel about them, and you're very self-conscious. That's not good for how the story develops. We get to a point where Violet has to leave Powder behind, and she takes Clagger and Milo, and they have to go save Vander. This really upsets Powder because she's established in her mind that she needs those touchstones, those people, to keep her safe. And while I think she wants to be a part of the group, I think it's more like she doesn't want to be separate from her sister because of that need to feel safe. And that shows itself in her outburst when she's alone in her room. She's looking at the things she's made that don't work. And so she has some severe, separation anxiety and anger at feeling helpless and not being able to do anything right, not being allowed to be with them because they feel like she'll hold them back. The scene at the warehouse starts happening, and she discovers the crystals in her bag, the explosive ones that we saw earlier in the show, and she decides to go help. Her anger and her separation anxiety are things that would naturally sort of resolve themselves as she grew older, as she learned from her sister, as she learned from Vander, as she perfected her craft and either leaned into being an artist or leaned into being an inventor. And those things would naturally kind of fade away as she became a more well-rounded person. But that doesn't happen because of what happens at the warehouse. She finally gets one invention right, and then it goes horribly wrong. and she ends up killing her friends, and she puts her sister in an even worse situation. It's really one of the most powerful scenes in the show. Right after that, she has an argument with Violet where I believe Violet calls her a Jinx. Just because, things are heated, emotions are everywhere. They're angry. Vander's dead. She hits her. And then Violet wanders off to sort of clear her head. And, it upsets Powder because she thinks that Violet has left her. But she didn't. She just needed to, sort through some things. But that's where she gets captured and doesn't come back. After being abandoned, that's when Silco shows up and adopts her. She thinks she's been abandoned, and he adopts her, and because he sort of sees a little bit of himself in her, in that smaller, person who the bigger, stronger people overlooked or didn't know how to deal with their eccentricities. And so Silco sort of becomes a new emotional touchstone for her. This is a very dangerous precedent because she hasn't developed ways to deal with those emotions, and Silco is not a good guy. The things that happen because of that happen because of the way that he deals with her. So all the guilt and the anger and everything that she has stored up inside, and the feelings of abandonment, they manifest themselves in these hallucinations of her dead friends, of Vander, of Vi, in really heartbreaking ways. She sort of got two sides of her emotion. She's got her crazy, sort of Harley Quinn, happy-go-lucky side, and then she's got this really dark, scary, hard to deal with side of talking to herself like she's talking to these dead friends because there were feelings between them that didn't get resolved. She never was able to process the grief, and so she did it the way a child would, and that's just continue to talk to them as if they're there, as if she didn't kill them. All of these emotions that she's having, the anger, the manic behavior between depression and just sort of being a loose cannon. If you really analyze it, it's very childlike. These are things that Silco didn't correct. He didn't reproach her when she did something bad. He rewarded her because he's the bad guy. She grew up to be an adult without her emotions growing, without healthy ways to deal with guilt, without healthy ways to deal with anger and depression. And so she's really just this melting pot of all these emotions, and it roils over and spreads to everybody and sort of infects everybody. And she really does kind of become a Jinx, just destroying everything that's around her. The progression between being a child and being who Jinx isn't that much, because she never learned to not be a child in the way that she deals with things. So all of those crazy antics and all of her hallucinations and everything that happens to her happens because she doesn't know how to properly deal with what she's feeling inside. And that happens to people in real life. And it's a good representation. It's a good mirror of what a lot of people have to deal with the things that they're feeling. But it also gives really solid motivation for how her character moves on in the future, and also how other characters have to maneuver around her because she's a bomb waiting to go off. And it feels like everybody else is tiptoeing. Even her sister, who's sort of trying to save her, is tiptoeing around the person that she's become and trying to draw her out of that insanity. So that's my thoughts on the character Jinx and her progression. Tell me what you guys think. This is a really interesting show. They got a lot of different characters, a lot of different character development and things that are happening and going on. It's one of the best shows for, in the way that they show their faces, in the lighting and everything. The way the show is drawn, the way everything happens to make you feel what these characters are feeling. So tell me what you guys think. Do you have a favorite character? What things that you think added to Powder becoming Jinx as we see her in the show. Be sure to subscribe and like and leave your comments. We thank you guys for being here and watching the video. We'll see you next time.
What a crazy story this is.
Yeah, we got through it.
Well, the story of Arcane is chaotic, and the interesting thing is, you explained so much about her character without mentioning, what is it, the drug called that they invent?
Oh,
it's all right if you don't remember.
There's
a
even
drug
remember, yeah.
that this story does like wrap around. I mentioned it in my clip when Vander became a monster. That's the drug he took. And even in the last picture in your slides, you can see Powder's or Jinx's eyes are purple, and she's got like tears and everything that are purplish colored.
Yeah,
and
she was like mortally wounded.
They used the drug to bring her, save her. And then there's the whole bit about what is it like the tower that. The city. What is it called? Upper World or something? Well, they call it Underworld.
I don't remember. I'm like trying to put stuff into my mind about the characters, and I'm losing stuff about the show.
Let's just say this: there's a lot to this show that you didn't even mention, and there's a lot of characters that were never brought up.
Oh man,
this is a complex story.
So much happens to her character.
So much.
It's hard to even try and niche it up as much as I did.
Yeah.
I felt like I was just talking nonstop, which I guess is what people want, is for you to talk to them.
You got to relay the information.
Because if it was just me sitting here looking at the computer and being like, I think this, and then go back and be like, yeah, which you guys can do at your leisure because you're watching us.
Yeah.
But yeah, the show is complex. There's a lot. We haven't even jumped into like half of the way the art looks.
No.
I mean, you could pause it almost anywhere.
Yeah.
And get, a work of art.
Absolutely.
It's so beautiful.
And that's the thing that I really appreciate about kind of what we're seeing in modern cinema and modern animation cinema like this is, with higher quality cameras, with everything, and just the industry across the board, people are taking time to push what's required for something to be good. And at this point, I've been thinking about this honestly since I was like 7 years old. Or when I started, grabbing at the ideas of like, maybe I'm an artist, I was thinking, if you could make a film where every single frame, every single shot looks like a piece of art, then you're doing a great job.
Oh, yeah.
Few things have done that. This is one of the things that has.
Yeah, this show absolutely is doing that.
But we're seeing it more and more across cinema, and that's just wonderful about it.
A lot of times with TV shows and with, mostly TV shows, because movies... with movies, you have a shorter thing than your average TV show. And so you know exactly what you want it to look like, dialogue, characters, everything. It's hard for a show to get everything right.
Yeah. And
when your animation is this good, and your characters are this good, and your dialogue is this good, and the way that they express emotions is this good, and it's hard to find another show that, competes, that's on the same level.
Not at the same level as this, The thing is, like, it's not the most groundbreaking animation. What we've seen in Pixar is far more detailed and complex. Yeah. I mean, Pixar's creating hair molecules. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The Pixar...
Directors at Pixar are like, that one, there's a few hairs on the chin that I didn't see the window behind him. I didn't see any glimmer on those hairs of chin.
Could you light those up?
His chin hairs. Yeah. We need to fix that. That's what Pixar's doing.
I mean, at this point, Pixar's creating these, like, almost humans, but giving them human texture.
They look like humans, they look like cartoons in a human world.
They're cartoon humans, but with like human skin and hair, and it's getting a little unsettling.
It is getting unsettling, and the cool thing about this is they're like, we are animating a cartoon world. It's going to be very heavily inspired by the design of the video game, which I guess we don't give enough credit to the video game designers if they're the original inspiration for this.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know enough about the video game.
The thing is, first and foremost, I would say we're probably lovers of stories before we're gamers.
Yeah.
And so this is not a gaming channel.
No.
But we
not yet.
But we can appreciate the fact that the gaming world has given us so much, including like things like The Mandalorian. You know, with the technology that the creators of The Mandalorian have done, including the new show Boba Fett, that technology wouldn't be possible without the video game industry.
Oh yeah,
because it's literally video game technology mixed with cinema, and it's crazy. We are truly on the first step for the last, our whole lives. They've been setting the groundwork. They've been like, remember those 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s? We had a certain way of making film. Well, now the sky's the limit. Technology's there. We can do whatever we.
I mean, with this show,
imagine.
I wouldn't want it to look like anything Pixar.
No.
I love the way the shadows look and the dirt on their faces look.
You love the way they move, which is unnatural.
Yeah, I love the way they move. I like the art. I love the art style. It's the same. I guess it's like the same reason when it comes to a more 2D animation, especially with like fight scenes and things. I love when the lines become extremely simplistic, and you have it's less the character that you recognize and more of a much more simplified version of the character, because it's easier to get them doing all the fighting moves and in one shot, instead of switching up positions.
Yeah.
And I love the way that looks. It's almost like
anime, classic anime style.
When it gets a little bit more rugged, it feels different. And I like the way because this feels dirty. It feels lived in.
Yeah, very lived in. That's a good word for it. And I don't know. I mean, even with what I was analyzing, this world is deep. It's alive. It's lived in. It's breathing. And you really feel that.
Well, even the scenes that aren't in the lanes, which is the poor areas, even the scenes up in the city, which are immaculate.
Immaculate, truly.
You'll see a window with a sunbeam coming in, and you're seeing motes of dust. And you feel like the world is breathing, like it's alive.
It is alive, man. It's alive in the hearts of the animators.
Yeah. And that's what matters.
Well, like, even watching what I was showing earlier, or watching the show as a whole, every time you're in a scene, you're not thinking like, this is a scene from a movie. Or a show. You're thinking, this is happening in a city. Yeah. What are all these other characters we know about doing at this moment that we know are somewhere else,
Yeah.
When you start thinking outside of just the scenes, you start thinking like the world that's around this scene, that's like close to the beginning, you're like, what is Vander doing in this moment with his friends scheming away in the bar?
Yeah, because they establish quickly that these are all characters in the same city, and they are somewhere else doing something.
Yeah, and you're thinking like, what is Silco doing? And better yet, what is Jinx doing? Because she's always up to something.
Yeah, she's the one you need to be worried about.
And she is every moment currently scheming something. She could be down in her lair, dropping bombs into giant pits, thinking up things, talking to her old friends.
Yeah.
Or talking to herself.
I mean, it gets me excited because I don't know if it's the next. I don't know if I'm doing another character breakdown right after this one. I might do something a little bit different, maybe a storytelling thing. But I want to do a Silco
definitely
breakdown.
Silco is probably my second favorite character.
I love him.
He's a villain, and so is Jinx in a lot of ways. But for some reason, the villains shine strong in this show. They shine real strong. They shine bright.
They shine bright.
Man. That's it, everybody.
Yeah.
we're very glad that you joined us. Once again, if you don't mind us plugging just a couple things, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast channel.
They can't see your hands.
We do a podcast every week. Actually, we do a couple.
Yeah.
We do this show every week, and the clips that me and Wyatt do come out on the studio channel. So we have 2 YouTube channels. If you don't want to search for them, just go to wiseworksfilms.com. We keep everything there. That's like our internet road sign that's like, go this way for this and go this way for that.
It's like a 4-way stop.
It's a 4-way stop for the internet.
And it's got a big road sign that shows you where to go.
Mm-hmm. And our faces are everywhere on that sign.
And it's a wonderful looking website.
It's pretty okay if I do say so.
I think you built it yourself, and I really like it. It's easy to navigate.
Thanks. It's like
check it out.
It's like you're navigating a world.
Yeah.
An experience.
Your website's an experience.
The website is an experience. And then one last thing that we're super excited about, and we're also just wanting to bring in as many people into the fold as we can. We have started a Patreon, and there are 3 different tiers. Each tier has benefits. If you would be willing to go follow us there, and if you're a fan of the podcast, you're really going to like the Patreon because stuff's coming out early. You have an exclusive thing every single week. You got, what else? Video versions of the Midnight Special.
Yeah.
Check that out.
Yeah.
That's never going to be in public. It's always going to be behind a paywall. So if you're interested in these things, go to our Patreon. The link is in the description. And follow us.
That really helps us out, giving us the ability to continue making content for you guys, which is what we're here to do.
Yeah, because right now we're spending all of our money to make things behind us look good.
Yeah. And I mean,
we're doing it.
We're doing it.
So thanks so much for watching. We really appreciate it. We'll see you guys next week, or on the podcast, or on the studio channel, wherever you watch most. Thanks. We love you.